Okay, DJ. So I know how much you love contributing to the notebook pieces.
Yeah.
So my guy Gennaro had an idea that we're going to write about top non-quarterback found building blocks, right? Foundational players that take the quarterback out, guys that are most important. If you could build a team around, who would you want? We did a cutoff of like 27 years of age because we want them in the middle of their prime, so we can build around them for the next half decade. And I think this is a great exercise for you and I to kind of flesh out some of these names because we always talk about team building. We talked about I would say maybe the new marquee positions in today's NFL based on the evolution of the league. And
Yeah.
so, the way I think about it in terms of building, I was like, well, if I'm going after a guy who's a building block, it needs to be one of a handful of positions. Pass rusher,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be an offensive or defensive playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
A cornerback, and then we need to have an offensive tackle because those are the ones where if we're going to draft, and we talked about this early in the week, where if we're drafting in the first round, maybe the first round is just for those marquee positions. Maybe we don't take an off-ball linebacker or some of those things. Like it has to be somebody special, something that's going to be a foundational piece. And so, DJ, some of the names on this list, you talk about like the Micah Parsons of the world, Nick Bosa's of the world, those things. So like if you could just think about like one player, because I think I sent you the list, one player that you could start the building process with, who would be the first guy that you would think about?
So I'm writing this down as we're talking about it because I had highlighted some names and I was trying to think of the best way to say it. The way I would look at it, and even as much as I love the value of a premier offensive tackle, I think that we've talked on here before and we fleshed this out before. We talked about the no tomato can theory, right?
Yeah.
Which was, I don't need 5 Hall of Famers. I don't even need 1 Hall of Famer. Your offensive line is as good as your weakest link. So you want to have steady, like a steady, solid offensive line. I'm good with that. Like I think you can win the Super Bowl with a steady offensive line. Maybe you don't have a superstar, but you don't have any tomato cans. So I'm going to take the offensive tackles, even though I love some of these guys, off the building block. Like this is I build around this guy. I'm going to take them out. So I came up with PPU. That's what I came up with here, Buck. PPU. Because we love kind of breaking this stuff down. Like
okay.
So I think if I'm thinking offense and I want to build my offense around somebody, and again, quarterbacks are off the table here. Playmaker. You use the word playmaker. And to me, really, those are the wideouts. So you're talking about the next, that a young player to build around for the future. To me, you start getting into the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons, AJ Brown's in that mix, CeeDee Lamb's in that mix. Like guys, you can kind of build your offense around. I think Garrett Wilson's got a chance to enter into that conversation. So I'm thinking playmakers offensively, and then defensively. Here's where the P and the U come in: pass rushers, which would probably be the first ones I would look at. Dominant pass rushers, and whether they're inside guys or outside guys. I might even lean more towards the inside guys being harder to find.
I think I know what the U is. I think the U is unicorn. Yeah. I think the U is for unicorn.
You got it. Because here's my thing. Like if I'm going to build a defense and you can give me a like Micah Parsons, Derwin James, those guys are the unicorns. So that's why I think, I can build around those guys as much as I could build around an interior or an edge rusher. So I love it. We're sharing a brain. Hadn't even talked about that. You already knew what the U was.
So I had to, when you're writing, you start putting the list up. And so I started thinking, all right, well, who are we thinking about? I was like, well, pass rusher. And funny, I was like, well, Michael Parsons is, if we're talking about building a team around, he might be the number one guy because he gives you a 2-for-1. He gives you an off-ball linebacker who can do all the stuff sideline to sideline, but he's a premier pass rusher. It is rare that you find someone like this, so he fits the unicorn category. Later down the list, I started thinking, okay, one day when you weren't here, I had an opportunity to talk to Bill Polian on MTS, and he talked about the safety position and the growing importance of safety in today's game. When you have running quarterbacks, you need someone that can match them. So then I thought, okay, well, that means Derwin James has to be in the mix. And it also made me think a little bit about Minkah Fitzpatrick because of his
it's a great one. It's a great one.
And so you start thinking like, okay, these guys that we're talking about as foundational pieces, they need to have a little more than just your traditional hey, I'm one position, you put me here, this is all I can do. They have to be able to impact the game a few different ways. And so versatility and position flexibility is really critical.
Yeah, and I think when you it's such a great topic, but I think of that analogy of the jar, right? You have the jar. We did it in Sunday school. You have the jar. You have next to the jar, you have all different size rocks. Then you have sand, and then you have some water. And you're like, how do I fit all that stuff into one jar? Well, the key to it is you got to put the big rocks in first. If you don't put the big rocks in, you're not going to get them in. So that's where you start. And that's what I think of when I think of this topic, like a building block. Like, okay, we can get the other stuff, but who's one that we can say this is the rock, this is the centerpiece, this is the foundation of which I can build either an offense or a defense. And I think that on defense, you look at those pass rushers, and Nick Bosa. You look at the interior guys where you have a Jeffrey Simmons, Quinnen Williams, Dexter Lawrence, who's emerging. I think we were looking at that age restriction, so that took some of those other guys, off the list. But when you're looking at those types of guys, oh man, I can start building the whole defense around that. And then the corner position, I would put that down below that. And I honestly think I would rather give me the Micah Parsons, the Derwin James over a premier corner. As much as I would love a shutdown corner of Sauce Gardner, what have you. I think I'd rather take the unicorn.
So here's the thing. Let's talk about the cornerback position, because that was one that I had to deliberate hard over. And DJ, it was only one corner in my mind that I could even consider taking. If you're making a list of 10, Sauce Gardner was the only corner that I could think about just based on how unique and rare he is in terms of size, athleticism, playmaking ability, and those things. And as much as I like Pat Surtain and Diggs and those other guys, they're different. They could play. They're different in terms of like when we talk about a building block, because when you think about the cornerback, in my mind, he needs to be, hey, we put him on that side of the field.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Hey, your man on that side by yourself. We'll zone everything else over on this side. And that's, I think Sauce Gardner is the only guy in that younger category that I can put there. People are talking about Yari Alexander, and that, to me,
can I give you my analogy on what you just said there? That's when if you have kids, you'll understand this. You get to the age where the kids get to a certain age where you can go to Disneyland, and one of them is old enough for you. Like, go ahead, you want to go ride that ride? Yeah. I can take my eyes. I don't have my eyes on you. We're fine. The other ones, we put them in a bright shirt. You're wearing a bright shirt, and my eyes are never leaving you the whole day we're at the park.
No, so it's the trust factor. Hey, now you got them locked down on that side. We're cool. Now we're gonna go over here and we're gonna focus on that other stuff. And so it's rare. The part that I don't say I struggled with, but I know we've had some debates about the value of the off-ball linebacker, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the names on that list, which would be like Fred Warner. You got Roquan Smith and some others. And then DJ, I'm starting to think like, man, bang for my buck. Is it enough bang for my buck to build around them? Is it essential? Is it an essential part of the championship puzzle? If I got Quinnen Williams, if I have Dexter Lawrence, if I have pass rushers, do I really need a high-end Mike linebacker? Do I skip that second level and say, okay, I got a premier front line. Let me get a couple premier pieces in the secondary, and then we can go play. It's different to think like that. But if we're talking about building a team and where we allocate the cash, maybe I don't allocate the cash like your buddy Howie Roseman. Yeah, well, linebackers are important, but we're not going to spend a whole lot of money.
Well, I mean, I see it, and it hasn't paid off in the form of a championship yet. But I mean, I see the philosophical mirror image of this with the Chargers, because they draft linebackers in the third or fourth round. They've done it with the Kaiser Whites. They've done it with the Drew Tranquils. They get some good play out of them, and then they're on to the next group of third, fourth rounders. I mean, it's just kind of, there's a lot of teams I think that are adopting that philosophy. Say, I got to pay my pass rushers, I got to pay my corners, but I can't pay everybody, and that's why we're going to allow linebackers to come and go.
Linebackers and running backs, we're picking and choosing. Yeah, we're picking and choosing because we feel like, and this goes all the way back. Willie Shaw, David Shaw's dad, used to talk about the front end can impact the back end far more than the back end can impact the front end, meaning that the trenches, if you're good in the trenches, you can be good everywhere else, because if you have the ability to rush people with four or control the line of scrimmage in the running game with your front four, Well, man, you can cobble together stuff. You can X and O the stuff in the back end. But if you don't have any pieces up front, you're gonna have a hard time winning games.
I don't want you to give away your list because you can read the article. It'll be out on Bucky's Notebook on Friday, NFL.com. So I'm not asking you to give away your entire list, but can I ask you one comp, like who you would go with? Because I'm curious on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Sauce Gardner or Derwin James, who would you rather have to have as your building block?
I want both of them. Like, why
you got to stack them. You got to stack them.
I would say that I would take Derwin more so than Sauce Gardner. And the reason why is if we're talking about controlling the middle of the field, I can do more things with Derwin James than I can with Sauce. Like Derwin, we talk about unicorn. On a week-to-week basis, I can move Derwin around. Derwin can play in the deep middle. Derwin can play on the tight end. Derwin can blitz off the edge and have an impact. With Sauce, I'm just having a guy that can control just one player. He can only erase one man. With Derwin, each week I can use him to take away the strength of the opponent. So I would rather have Derwin more so than Sauce.
So I agree with you on that. And I love Sauce Gardner. We're going to do our corner draft here in a little bit, and that'll be reflected once we go through that list. But I would say one of the main reasons I think I would lean towards Derwin is because of the impact we're seeing of the athletic quarterback, where we're seeing every year more and more athletic quarterbacks coming into the league. Example, you're playing the Colts this year. Who's gonna be better equipped to slow down Anthony Richardson? Is it going to be Sauce Gardner taking away Michael Pittman and Michael Pittman doesn't have a catch? Or is it going to be Derwin James in the middle of the field every time he tries to escape and run? He closes the space and gets him, for a 2-yard loss or a 2-yard gain.
Look, DJ, one of the things that NFL teams they're beginning to have to do is they have to steal ideas from the college game. So going all the way back to Bud Foster and the Virginia Tech defense, when they would play those teams, because they stunned Ohio State one year opening game, and they kind of took away Braxton Miller and those guys. And what they did is they dropped the safety down, and that safety was integral in the run game, dealing with the quarterback and those things. And so as you're dealing with the Jalen Hurts of the world, the Lamar Jacksons, the Justin Fields, you need to have a safety who is as athletic and as physical as the bodies that we're seeing at quarterback. Because remember, the quarterbacks that are now playing are not the Tom Brady types. When you look at Justin Fields and Anthony Richardson and those guys, if it wasn't for the fact that they could throw it better than anybody, their high school coaches would have put them at another position on offensive defense to handle things. And so you need to have someone that is a comparable athlete to deal with that kind of explosive playmaker.
I think their athleticism makes it difficult on the quarterback. I also think what their versatility does in terms of disguise makes it mentally more taxing on a quarterback. In other words, if you see most safeties pre-snap lined up over Tyreek Hill in the slot, he's coming. I know he's coming. They're not going to leave him out there with Tyreek Hill. I've seen Derwin James be left alone with Tyreek Hill with no help. Like that, you'd never step to the line of scrimmage as a quarterback and feel comfortable knowing what you're looking at and what's coming, depending on where the safety is. We always talk about quarterbacks. Safeties are the window into the soul of the defense. That's gonna be your tell. That's gonna help you with understanding what they're trying to do against you. You can't do that when you have someone capable of doing everything on a football field, and that's what like a guy like Derwin James gives you.
Yeah, that's what it gives you, and that's why you have to have him, and that's why you want to have that kind of player. You want to have him. You want to have a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick who has corner-like skills but can play the deep middle. And his game has changed since he went to Pittsburgh, but I still remember all the different things he did in Miami, and it's still there. It's just a different position. It's a unique position. It's also one of the reasons why you're seeing teams kind of move away from the linebacker, and they're having that hybrid big safety kind of play there in formation. Yes.
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah with Cleveland, he'd be an interesting one to kind of have as a chess piece to build a defensive system around. So anyways, that's an article. It's coming out. You can find that Friday. It's a fascinating topic there. Bucky's going to list. What are you ranking? Top 10 on this thing?
Top 10. So now you made me go back, and I had a little rough list, but now we started talking about some things. And so the offensive
PPU, Buck. That's my contribution. PPU, free of charge.
Yeah. The offensive tackle thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting because the names on the list, let's just give you some of the names. Penei Sewell, Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, Slater, Darrisaw. And so Darisaw. So if you think about that, how many of those guys in traditional landscape, if we're talking, would every general manager say, "Oh, I got to have him. We got to build it around him." This makes you go back and think like, well, could we do it without a guy like that?
And I love them. And I love them. I love all those players, the way they've played and what they've brought. And I trust me, you want to have a good left tackle. I just think, I don't know that the if you go from a great left tackle to a solid left tackle, is that worth
big of a deal? Is it that big of a deal?
Yeah. So anyways, interesting conversation.